exploring hand printing at home, choosing the right paper can make all the difference, and it doesn't have to cost a fortune. Welcome to my home print studio. I get lots of questions about the papers that I use, so in this video I'm showing you my go-to favourites for hand printing. They're versatile, affordable and perfect for experimenting with monoprint, chine-collé, collage and layered mixed media work. I'm Ruth and I help artists deepen their practice through hand printing at home. If you are interested in learning how to hand print at home, and that's monoprint, working with printing plates, all the way through to making frameable art and integrating print into your existing practice, then take a look at my new course, 10 Weeks of Hand Printing Happiness. Enrolment opens on May the 3rd, that's next Saturday. Do get on the wait list because not only will you hear first, but you'll also get an early bird discount, a fairly substantial one. So if you're interested, the link is down in the description. Just join the wait list and you'll get an email next week. Right, let's get going. So I like to use thin papers to hand print at home, and there's several reasons for that. Number one, they will pick up every single mark that you make in your ink or your paint without much pressure. And when I'm hand printing with hand pressure, without a printing press, that's what I really want. I want every mark I make to show up. Number two, if they're so transparent or they're so thin that they're transparent, then you don't need to use registration marks. And that's a really nice little added bonus. You can see through your paper when you're doing several layers, one on top of the other, and you can place it exactly where you want it. So that's quite a nice thing as well. And number three, if you're using thin papers to print with, you can also use them for collage at a later date or to add to mixed media pieces onto boards or canvases. So it's really versatile. If it hasn't worked out quite like you wanted it to, or it's just a lovely piece of texture or colour, put it aside. It can be used for all sorts of projects as well. So if I'm looking online, I tend to look for 30 GSM or under, and 30 GSM is the weight of the paper. So I'm looking for something 30 or under, that's pretty light basically. I'm also looking for something that isn't too textured, because it's quite difficult to get your printed marks onto textured paper. The texture kind of gets in the way. So some stockists will offer test packs of different papers, so that's really useful to see what you want, and they're not too expensive as well. I also like to use off-white paper because it adds a little bit of warmth straight away without you even trying. So I don't tend to get bright white. I'll tend to get a soft colour if I can, and Japanese and Asian papers often are a softer colour anyway, and they soften up all your marks. So that can be a really nice way to just add warmth to your pieces. So my favourites are tissue paper. Now I've got a whole video about how tissue paper is great and why I love it, so do check that one out. I'll link it in this video, but I do use a lot of it. I get mine from a company that actually makes tissue paper for museums, and that's to wrap objects in or put between documents, things like that, and they sell it in sheets like this or in rolls. Now actually I must admit I usually get rolls. I do prefer the rolls. I have got sheets this time because they were all out of stock of the rolls, and they're fine, but they're just a little bit less strong, and also you're constrained by the size of your sheet, whereas with a roll, generally speaking, you know, it's however many meters long. So yeah, I really love it. It means you can do without registration marks. It picks up ink really well. What the ink or paint does do with tissue paper is that it sits on the surface. It doesn't tend to absorb very much. And that can be really nice. I think that has a really nice effect. But what it does mean is that you are restricted a little bit by how many layers you can add wet on wet, because they'll start to merge and do funny things. So the ink or paint will tend to sit on the surface of your tissue paper. But as long as you know that, then, you know, that's no problem particularly. So next up is Asian or Japanese papers. Now, this is a roll of Asian paper. Japanese paper in actual fact. It's really difficult to see the texture here, and that is why it is worth getting some test packs sometimes, because you can't really in a photograph or a video see the texture. But basically this has got, you can probably see the deckled edges there. It's got deckled edge, and it just shows how soft it is. It's really, really soft. And I'll just see if I can get one sheet on its own. So it's quite thin. You can kind of see through it. So I go for the more budget options, just because I don't want to be paralysed by making a wrong mark on a really expensive sheet of paper. But the great thing about this stuff is it softens everything. It's really forgiving. It softens all your marks up. It absorbs your ink or paint quite well, oil or water-based. And what that means is you can add a few more layers wet on wet before it starts sort of breaking down and becoming a bit muddy. So if you do want to add several layers on top of each other, then slightly textured off-white Japanese paper is a really good one to go for. So my favourite Asian papers are Kozo White and Kozo Natural, and the Tozo Washi as well. Now both of those you can get from the Intaglio Printmaker.com website, but basically they're affordable, they're thin, and they've got a lovely texture to them as well. So those are my favourites of the Japanese papers. And then other good stockists are greatart.com, which is another online retailer. They've got a really good selection, and they also sell Chinese calligraphy paper in rolls, which is a really good budget option actually for a soft Asian, light soft Asian paper. And there's also Shepherd's Bookbinders, which again is a UK company. They have lots of Japanese and Asian papers. I also have a couple of stockists nearby me, which is quite nice. So do check out your stockists. My local university, art college university shop stocks Japanese paper. So maybe have a look out there for some some more specialist art shops. Really worth keeping an eye out. And I also sometimes like to use fairly thin cartridge paper, as thin as you can get if possible. It's not very forgiving, it doesn't soften anything, which can be quite nice. So that's going to give you a really graphic image. I can't really explain it. It's brighter, it's bolder, nothing is softened at all. The colours are as you mix them usually, and because it's usually bright white, it is going to make your colours really zing out and just be a bit more graphic. Cartridge paper itself will be usually archival and pH neutral. If you just want to experiment, I sometimes just use copy paper as well, which is not archival but will have the same effect and is quite thin. So those are my three sort of go-to papers. So on top of all that, you can use other papers that give a much more mixed media feel, and you can play around with papers as well. So I mean, you could use something like brown paper, wrapping paper, newspaper, of course, especially if you're going to cover up quite a lot of the paper itself. I'm using an old book here for my 100-day project, if you've seen that. So these are quite yellowed old pages that I've done a dry point on there. So all of these things are possible. Those kind of papers, you may not be able to control the outcome quite so much. And the other thing that you just need to think about is whether they're archival, pH neutral. If they're not, then they will eventually start going a bit yellow and a bit funny on you. So you just want to think about that. If you want something mounted and framed and to last forever, then those probably aren't the papers for you. But they're great to play around with and make some mixed media projects as well. So I just thought I would show you the difference between the papers. Now I've got 3 prints here that I actually did for a demonstration, workshop demonstration, and they're basically the same print but on different papers, and you'll see the difference. So this is tissue paper, and what's happened here is the mark, these beautiful soft marks here have shown up. The roller marks have shown up, which I've kind of left as they are because I really like them. This swoosh of colour here is picked up really beautifully. What has happened is that this last layer, which was supposed to be quite dark, like sort of sticks and things in the foreground, is actually, because the ink is sitting on the surface of the paper, it's kind of starting to do funny things. It's starting to take ink off rather than put ink onto the paper. So those are the pros and the cons of using tissue paper. This one here is Japanese paper, and these marks here that showed up really well on the tissue paper have really softened to the point that you can hardly see them. But you've also got this lovely softness of this swoosh of colour here. So you can see how it's softened it up. And it's also just softened up this, it's kind of made a graduated tone here and graduated colour. But because that ink has absorbed into the paper quite easily, this dark foreground is fine. It's not doing anything too funny, and it's showing up as a sort of last layer. So it's also slightly dulled the colours actually. It's dulled the grey colour in particular. And then I've also got this, now this, I think this was a piece of cartridge, it's actually fairly thick cartridge paper. I've kind of abandoned doing the really subtle marks on this because they just don't come up quite so well, although they haven't on this. But you can get these lovely swathes of colour. It's quite graphic. This circular mark here has you know, come out really well, and also these foreground marks, these dark foreground marks have shown up really well as well. Not very forgiving. You get lots of these sort of extra marks that I didn't particularly want, but you know, sometimes that can be a really nice thing to do as well, and if you know that that's probably going to happen, then you can kind of plan for it. So those are the 3 pictures, very similar pictures at any rate, on the different papers, and you can see the difference that it makes. So I hope this has given you an idea of what to try if you want to give hand printing a go. And if this has really piqued your interest and you'd really like to pursue printing at home, then take a look at my new course, Hand Printing Happiness. So enrolment opens on May the 3rd, and it's only open for 14 days. So it's the one time a year then when this course is going to be open, and it's going to take you all the way through from setting up your home print studio to making frameable, beautiful pieces of artwork on paper, and then integrating it into your art practice as well. So it's 10 weeks long. Take a look, there's a link down in the description. Take a look at what it's all about, and you can also join the wait list in that link as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.